Everyone. This is Jerry O'Donnell, and this episode of Queen Esther series is episode 6, part 6. And Esther, chapter 7, verse 1, and I start reading there. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, What is your petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request, that it shall be performed, even to half the kingdom? Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I found favor in your sight, O king, and it pleases the king, let my life be given at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, and I and my people to be destroyed and to be slain, to perish. But if it have been sold for bondwoman or bondmen, and I held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king countervail the king's damage. And the king Ahasuerus answered and said to Queen Esther, Who is he, and where is he that does presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, The adversary and enemy is the wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king arose from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into his garden, and Haman stood up to make request to his life to Esther the queen, and he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed where Esther was. Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in my house? And as the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Haman, one of the chamberlain, said before the king, Behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standing in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So they hung Haman on the gallows that was prepared for Mordecai. And then was the king's wrath pacified. And that kind of concludes this thing on Esther. But awesome, eh? It's an awesome day in the house of the Lord. Favor of the king, And there's a lot of people out there that have been going through trials and tribulation and tests, and they've been afflicted in their body. Some of them even to the shadow of death, and they feared no evil, and God was with them even in this, and the Lord will never forsake them, and God will raise up an instrument of a vessel, and vessels of honor in the king's house, and just like Esther and Mordecai, and they will prevail against the walls of the enemy. In Jesus' mighty name, I tell you, this pattern will be repeated in Jesus' mighty name, and nothing that God has purpose in his heart shall be left undone, and not one dot or tittle shall fail by any means until all these things be fulfilled. But anyway, until next time, may God bless.